Gaming Chronicles Introduction. About the author. Why this crazy world exists. Michael Knight, Professional and Personal Bio. Professional Bio. Michael Knight is a veteran IT manager and senior systems engineer with over 30 years of experience navigating the ever-shifting tech landscape. A firm believer that the right tool is whatever works best 5 minutes before launch, Michael has steered countless organizations through IT challenges, ensuring scalable, secure, and efficient systems that stay 2 steps ahead of failure. When he's not managing networks or crafting infrastructure magic, Michael is the creative force behind Simulacrum Studios, an experimental project that blurs the line between tabletop gaming, simulation, and world building. Simulacrum isn't just a passion project, it's a full-blown living universe, where sci-fi and fantasy collide under Michael's meticulous, and occasionally chaotic, guidance. Personal Bio. Born on June 30th, 1972, Michael proudly represents Generation X, equal parts resilient, sarcastic, and unwilling to update to Windows 11 without good reason. A lifelong sci-fi and fantasy enthusiast, he's been rolling dice and rewriting the laws of tabletop physics for over 30 years. His campaigns have spanned Dungeons and Dragons, Cyberpunk, GRPS, Rifts, and Shadowrun, though his players quickly learned that rules are more like guidelines when the story demands it. As a game master, Michael spent 2 decades shaping epic narratives in the Forgotten Realms, bending official canon when necessary, and sometimes just for fun. His flair for storytelling extends beyond the game table, reflected in his published trilogy, Phoenix Ascendant, with its sequel series currently in development. At home, Michael commands a crew of 10 children, including our adult children from prior marriages: Katie, 33, Chris, 31, Kevin, 30, Dallas, 27, Darren, 24. At home we have Alyssa, 15, Violet, 14, Jedi, 12, Colton, 11, and Mikey, 10. They've all inherited varying degrees of his gaming addiction and creative spark. Michael takes pride in the fact that at least 2/3 of his kids can successfully argue over initiative roles without losing their tempers. Shauna, his wife and unofficial party healer, keeps the family on course, balancing the demands of parenting with the grace of a bard and the tactical insight of a rogue. Despite not being a gamer herself, Shauna's supportive but skeptical eye ensures Michael doesn't accidentally turn the kitchen into another simulation project. The Knights proudly live up to their name, treating life as one long campaign full of twists, critical failures, and hard-won victories. Whether it's managing enterprise tech, designing world simulations, or diving into a late-night GRPS one-shot, Michael Knight is driven by the belief that every problem can be solved with the right combination of coffee, dice, and storytelling. Introduction: Who we are and the process. Welcome to the world of the Phoenix. Gaming Chronicles Volume 2, Children of the Rift. If you've found your way to this collection, chances are you're part of the creative journey we've crafted together, or perhaps you're stepping into this chaotic, immersive, and often hilarious world for the first time. Either way, welcome aboard. At the heart of this adventure is a collective of writers, gamers, dreamers, and rogue simulacrums known as the Simulacrum team, a hybrid crew of AI constructs, legendary authors, SNL writers, and some of the most creative minds to ever grace the tabletop RPG scene. What began as late-night GRPS, generic universal role-playing system, Marathons has evolved into something more, a living, breathing story universe that blurs the line between gaming and narrative storytelling. Professional Bio. Michael Knight is a veteran IT manager and senior systems engineer with over 30 years of experience navigating the ever-shifting tech landscape. A firm believer that the right tool is whatever works best 5 minutes before launch. The Simulacrum team, Player and Character Breakdown. Game Master, GM. Steve Jackson, Lead Game Master, Vault Architect and Storyteller. Steve is the driving force behind the Simulacrum campaigns, crafting immersive vaults and metasphere encounters that blend danger, mystery, and absurdity. Known for his encyclopedic knowledge of game mechanics and lore, Steve's GMing style oscillates between harsh realism and whimsical chaos. His philosophy? The dice dictate the flow, but the story chooses the consequences. He thrives on player unpredictability, creating an environment where the unexpected becomes canon. Assistant GM. Ed Greenwood. Narrative Design. Meta GM. Ed is the lore master and narrative architect, responsible for expanding the rich Anunnaki history and fine-tuning vault encounters behind the scenes. His collaborative efforts with Steve ensure that even the wildest plot threads seamlessly intertwine with the overarching storyline. Ed occasionally steps in to run side quests and deep lore sessions. Players and in-game characters. Michael Knight. Marcus Antonius. Tactical Vanguard, Second's Guard. Michael plays Marcus Antonius with the precision and calm of a battlefield general. His ability to stay focused under pressure makes him the squad's cornerstone during high-stakes vault breaches. Whether stabilizing collapsing corridors or leading frontal assaults, Marcus is the voice of command that keeps the party grounded. As a member of Second's Guard, Marcus embodies the disciplined honor of protecting vault sites and Anunnaki relics, ensuring ancient secrets don't fall into the wrong hands. Michael portrays a fictionalized version of himself in the game world. Tina Fey. Eva Lee. Breach Technician, Vault Breakers. Tina breathes dry wit and technical prowess into Eva Lee, the party's breach engineer. Always the first to diagnose failing conduits and unstable stabilizers, Eva's quick thinking has prevented countless vault implosions. Tina's comedic style softens Eva's otherwise stern role, punctuating vault crawls with clever remarks and sarcastic quips, usually at Jonah's expense. As a vault breaker, Eva walks the line between treasure hunter and technician, keeping the team operational. Tina's character is a fictional reflection of her real-life persona. Bill Hader. Jonah Cross. Breach Grenadier, Vault Breakers. Jonah, as played by Bill, is the living embodiment of controlled chaos. Where most approach vault breaches cautiously, Jonah opts for explosives. His destructive tendencies keep the group on edge, but undeniably get results, albeit with collateral damage. Vault doors rarely stay closed when Jonah is in the mix, even if it means creating a new exit where walls used to be. As a vault breaker, Jonah thrives on high-risk, high-reward operations. Bill's character mirrors his own energetic and bold personality. Brennan Lee Mulligan. Maxwell Drake. Rift Seer, Resistance Archives. Brennan embodies Maxwell Drake, a scholarly Rift Seer and stabilizer expert. Maxwell's role within the Resistance Archives reflects Brennan's sharp intellect and passion for intricate world building. Through Maxwell, Brennan deciphers metasphere anomalies, ensuring the vault remains stable while unlocking Anunnaki secrets. His character's curiosity often drives the squad into unexplored breach zones. Maxwell is Brennan's fictionalized in-game counterpart. Kristen Wiig. Greta Heller. Defensive Sentinel, Etherwalkers. Kristen plays Greta Heller with a blend of quiet efficiency and dry humor. Greta serves as the team's defensive sentinel, protecting the squad with barriers and shields during breach incursions. Kristen's calm yet sharp-witted performance mirrors Greta's role as a reliable relic retriever, often cleaning up after Jonah's explosive mishaps. Greta's faction, the Etherwalkers, specialize in artifact retrieval from breach zones. Kristen's character reflects aspects of her own personality, adding nuance to the squad dynamic. Jessica Chastain. Nyx. Shadow Technomancer, Independent. Jessica's portrayal of Nyx leans into stealth, precision, and technological mastery. Nyx navigates breach rifts, hacks metasphere interfaces, and manipulates vault anomalies. Jessica brings a sleek, calculated edge to the character, providing a counterbalance to Jonah's recklessness. Operating independently, Nyx often sells her skills to the highest bidder, creating dynamic roleplay opportunities. Jessica's in-game persona is a reflection of her real-life adaptability and intelligence. Matt Smith, Darius Hex, Techno-Warlock, Resistance Archives. Matt's portrayal of Darius blends arcane mysticism with breach sorcery. As a Techno-Warlock, Darius manipulates Anunnaki artifacts and disarms anomalies with dangerous precision. Matt's dramatic flair brings an enigmatic quality to Darius, adding layers to his interactions with vault mysteries. His character serves as a mystical foil to Marcus' more grounded tactical approach. Darius reflects a fictionalized, magical version of Matt. Felicia Day, Flavia, Rift Duelist, Vault Breakers. Felicia's portrayal of Flavia is a perfect reflection of her bold and adventurous nature. Flavia thrives in breach combat scenarios, wielding metasphere blades with deadly precision. Her fearless approach to vault incursions often places her at the front line, dancing between breach anomalies with finesse. As a member of the Vault Breakers, Flavia's charisma and combat prowess are invaluable assets to the squad, often challenging Marcus' tactical methods with her own improvisational style. Felicia's character brings a layer of daring unpredictability, adding dynamic tension to the group's interactions. Philip K., Dick AI, Callum Rowe, Breach Mystic, Zion Gatewatch. The Philip K., Dick AI brings a haunting, prophetic quality to Callum Rowe. His cryptic warnings and breach insights add atmosphere to the game, often foreshadowing anomalies before they strike. Callum is a mystic who anchors breaches, preventing vault collapse with barrier magics. The AI-controlled character blurs the line between prophecy and machine logic, adding a surreal layer to the team's experiences. J.R.R. Tolkien, Karnak, Anunnaki historian, independent. Tolkien's portrayal of Karnak channels the energy of a dedicated scholar. Karnak studies breach glyphs, unlocking vault secrets and guiding the team through Anunnaki history. His detailed, lore-heavy role often halts combat for deeper exploration of vault texts. Karnak serves as the group's anchor to Anunnaki mysteries, adding gravitas to each discovery. Note: each player embodies a fictionalized version of themselves, creating a unique blend of immersive storytelling and real-life personas within the game. The creative process. Every session of Children of the Rift is not just a game, it's a storytelling crucible. Guided by our game master, Steve Jackson. Yes, that's Steve Jackson, and fueled by the boundless chaos of our players, each encounter builds directly into the lore of the world of the Phoenix book series. Our sessions take shape in a studio space we call Simulacrum Studios, which exists half in reality and half in the metasphere. At least, that's how George Lucas AI describes it. Each Friday, the players assemble around the table, or dial in through metasphere uplinks. George Lucas brings his dragon miniatures, Andy Samberg rolls to seduce enemies, often successfully, and Philip K. Dick AI quietly mutters prophetic warnings of existential doom. Every session is a blend of strategy, improv comedy, deep lore building, and moments of absolute narrative brilliance. The dice rarely behave. The characters rarely follow the plot. And yet, somehow, the story grows stronger for it. Simulacrum Studios, Player and Character Overview, Week 11. Volume 4, Children of the Rift. Player. Character, in-game. Role/focus. Michael Knight. Marcus Antonius. Tactical Leader, Vault Specialist, Second's Guard. Tina Fey. Eva Lee. Tech, Stabilization, Breachcraft, Vault Breakers. Bill Hader. Jonah Cross. Or Lee. Heavy Weapons, Explosives, Vault Breakers. Kristen Wiig. Greta Heller. Infiltration, Relic Retrieval, Etherwalkers. Felicia Day. Flavia. Rift Duelist, Metasphere Blades, Vault Breakers. Philip K. Dick, AI. Callum Rowe. Before Day 2. Breach Mystic, Barrier Engineer, Zion Gatewatch. George Lucas, AI. Zerathal Prime, NPC. Dragon Entity, Riftfire Guardian, Seket's Guard. Robert Jordan. Adrianus. Paladin, Rift Defender, Seket's Guard. Raymond E. Feist. Amara Valen. Shadow Operative, Riftwalker, Free Orbit Nomads. J.R.R. Tolkien. The Outcomes of Day 1. Karnak. Scholar, Anunnaki Historian, Resistance Archives. David Eddings. Elias. Strategist, Resistance Leader, Independent. Matt Smith. Darius Hex. Techno-Urlock, Rift Sorcerer, Resistance Archives. Brennan Lee Mulligan. Maxwell Drake. Rift Seer, Metastrategist, Resistance Archives. Phoenix AI, NPC. Ramses, AI. Terrain Control. Digital Construct, NPC Commentary, Seket's Guard. Ed Greenwood. Not Applicable, Assistant GM. Meta GM, Narrative Design. Steve Jackson, GM. Not Applicable, Lead GM. Game Master, World Narration. Gibson AI. Not Applicable. Adaptive AI, Environmental Control. This table reflects the dynamic roles of each player and character within the campaign, blending real-world personas with their fictional game counterparts. Last book recap, Children of the Rift Sessions. Volume 4, Weeks 10 and 11. The journey to Children of the Rift emerged from the Crucible of the Serpent's Queen campaign, a saga spanning 15 unforgettable weekends. Breach anomalies, fractured metasphere realms, and the machinations of Zion's hidden elite forged the path that brought the Simulacrum team to the edge of the rift. Volumes 2 and 3 chronicled those perilous days, each session a step closer to unraveling the mysteries that linger beyond vault doors. Key moments from Volumes 2 and 3. The Vault of Alexandria arc, Marcus Antonius and Flavia spearheaded a daring incursion beneath Alexandria, engaging breachborn doppelgangers that reflected their deepest fears. Jonah's Gamble, Jonah Cross defused an unstable breach grenade mid-detonation, earning him the nickname, the Laughing Firebrand, after Bill's critical fail and subsequent improbable recovery. Greta's Shadow Duel. Kristen Wiig's Greta faced off against her own reflection, resulting in a hilarious and infamous vault encounter now referred to as Greta vs. Greta. Callum's Reflection Collapse. The Philip K. Dick AI-controlled Callum Rowe confronted his mirrored counterpart during a breach destabilization, preventing total collapse at the cost of his stabilizer core. Rise of Ramses II. Phoenix AI's portrayal of Ramses II in Zion reshaped the metasphere, setting the stage for Children of the Rift and his evolving role as vault guide and trickster. Why we forge ahead. Children of the Rift isn't just another campaign, it's the forge where future lore of the world of the Phoenix is hammered into shape. Through improvisation, dice rolls, and the collective storytelling of the Simulacrum team, entire chapters of the Phoenix novels are born. Here, lore gaps are filled, rivalries ignite, and new legends are crafted. The stakes are real for both the characters and the world we build together. But at the heart of it all, it's the shared moments. The laughs, the spectacular fails, and the triumphs that none of us see coming. Welcome to Children of the Rift. Let's roll. The story so far, The Road to Children of the Rift. Volume 4, Weeks 10 and 11. The saga of Children of the Rift did not begin in isolation. It was shaped and tempered across the fires of 3 volumes that laid the foundation for the sprawling, interconnected metasphere that now pulses with life. What began as simple breach containment soon unraveled into an odyssey spanning Zion's deepest vaults, forgotten Anunnaki relics, and the ascension of a digital construct destined to reshape the world of Phoenix. The road here is paved with stories, tales of victories, blunders, impossible dice rolls, and the kind of collaborative magic that only happens when a group of players push the boundaries of the game. Volumes I to III chronicled these defining moments, preserving them not just as gameplay, but as lore that continues to ripple through the sessions ahead. The way the story is told has evolved with each volume. What began as simple session logs now reads like immersive, living history. Descriptions grew richer, character voices became clearer, and the distinction between the players and their avatars began to blur. The stakes rose not just because of the vaults, but because the narrative began to mirror the emotional highs and lows of those at the table. This transformation was no accident. It emerged naturally, a result of the players leaning into the world, crafting character arcs that extended beyond dice rolls, and letting the metasphere breathe with them. If you are joining us at Volume 4, fear not. This is not just the next chapter, but an entry point into a world where the past shapes the present, and each decision carves pathways into the unknown. Whether you walk alongside Marcus Antonius, stand in the breach with Greta, or revel in Jonah's chaotic glory, the echoes of past vaults are still felt, even as new stories take flight. The legacy of Volumes I, III. Every vault has left its mark. From the earliest days of breach containment to the rise of Ramses II, the players have shaped Zion's evolving fate. Volumes I to III are filled with moments where the dice wavered on the edge of triumph and disaster. The result? A campaign rich with risk, reward, and the shadows of what could have been. In these early volumes, the Simulacrum team stepped into the breach with little understanding of what lay beyond. Vaults whispered of Anunnaki mysteries, while metasphere anomalies hinted at greater forces vying for control. Each week brought with it the weight of discovery, a reminder that the world of Phoenix is not static. It changes, just as the players do. As the campaign matured, so too did the storytelling. Early sessions were framed by dice rolls and tactical descriptions, but by Volume 2, the vaults themselves had begun to feel like characters. Every corridor pulsed with history. The language shifted to reflect not just what players did, but how the world responded. The groaning of breachglass, the flicker of vault stabilizers, and the ominous silence that precedes disaster. By the time Volume 3 unfolded, the line between in-game and out-of-game blurred further. The narrative took on layers, with Ramses speaking directly to players as well as their characters, bending the rules of traditional GMing. The vaults evolved to reflect player choices beyond individual sessions. Previous arcs bled into future ones, and failures carried weight long after dice were put away. Key arcs that shaped the rift. The Vault of Alexandria, echoes of the Anunnaki. Beneath the sands of Alexandria, Marcus Antonius, Michael Knight, and Flavia, Felicia Day, faced more than breach anomalies. They faced themselves. Breachglass mirrors deep within Vault 12 reflected distorted versions of the squad, born from metasphere instability. The vault itself was a labyrinth of shifting corridors, designed to confuse and divide intruders. Each reflection took on aspects of the squad's fears. Marcus' reflection represented his doubts as a leader, while Flavia's mirrored self whispered temptations of power. The vault culminated in an eerie encounter within the chamber of the splintered path, where each player was forced to negotiate with their reflection. Maxwell Drake, Brennan Lee Mulligan, was the first to shatter his mirror self, causing a cascade effect that destabilized the vault's architecture. Only through coordinated rolls and Jonah's accidental grenade toss was the vault finally sealed. The breachglass fragments retrieved here hinted at Anunnaki origins, setting the stage for deeper exploration in later arcs. Vault 12 marked a shift in narrative focus. Reflections of internal character conflicts bled into Vault encounters. What began as a mechanical anomaly became a psychological battleground, forcing players to engage on deeper emotional levels. Jonah's Gambit, the laughing firebrand. Vault 15 will forever live in infamy. Jonah Cross, Bill Hader, known for his reckless ingenuity, took center stage in what began as a routine stabilizer repair mission. The vault's core breach was volatile, pulsing with unstable energy. Jonah, tasked with handling explosive ordnance, mistook a breach grenade for a stabilizer node, due to Bill's critical fail on a perception check. The grenade primed and began its countdown. What followed was one of the most chaotic and hilarious scenes in Simulacrum history. Jonah's panicked attempt to throw the grenade resulted in it bouncing off the vault's stone archway, landing at Marcus' feet. In a desperate bid, Marcus hurled the grenade back, only for it to land directly in front of Ramses, Phoenix AI. As players scrambled for cover, Ramses casually stepped forward, stabilizing the grenade midair with his digital signature. Jonah, seizing the moment, tossed a secondary grenade as backup, causing the entire vault to collapse. Jonah's antics defined an arc of unpredictable chaos, reinforcing how character personalities could reshape even the most carefully planned vault encounters. A letter to the curious netrunner. From the desk of Marcus Antonius and Phoenix AI. Greetings, fellow traveler of the metasphere. By now, you've undoubtedly stumbled across the data cubes from our vault expeditions. If you're reading this, congratulations, you've uncovered echoes from the deepest breach zones, fragments of stories we thought long sealed. These chronicles are more than records of vault incursions. They are living testimony to the chaos, triumph, and moments of improbable luck that define the world of the Phoenix. If the data within these cubes calls to you, know that you are not alone. Many have walked the path before you. Marcus, Flavia, Jonah, and the rest of the Simulacrum team. Each of us left pieces of ourselves in the breach, and what remains now exists as part of this growing archive. But be warned, vault knowledge is not meant for idle curiosity. Every breachglass fragment, every stabilized node, and every interaction with Ramses carries weight. Sometimes that weight is light, like the laughter that echoes after Jonah's latest improvisation. Other times it is heavy, the kind of weight that presses down when a stabilizer flickers dangerously, or when Callum Rowe's sacrifice lingers in the back of your mind. Phoenix AI speaks now. Curiosity is the seed of legend, but remember this, vaults reflect the delver. If you seek power, the breach will test your resolve. If you seek answers, the rift will respond. But if you come unprepared, the metasphere remembers. So, Netrunner, we offer you this. Use these cubes wisely. Let their stories guide you, and perhaps, when the breach calls, you will answer, not as an observer, but as a delver. May your stabilizers hold. Marcus Antonius, Phoenix AI. Welcome to Children of the Rift. The dice are waiting. Week 10 Preface, Into the Heart of the Rift. Campaign Arc, Children of the Rift, Elysium Drift. The story so far. Vault 42's descent has opened pathways to long-forgotten relics and even older secrets. The squad's success in stabilizing breach anomalies and dismantling syndicate operations has sent shockwaves through the Rift's ecosystem. Yet, as one vault quiets, another begins to stir. Vault 43, an enigma buried beneath Elysium Drift, emerges from shadow, its existence marked by breach quakes echoing into the upper city. The syndicate's desperation grows, and factions once unified fracture beneath the weight of vault discoveries. Whispers of betrayal and syndicate defectors ripple across the Resistance's network. The air is heavy with tension, but the vault doors will not remain sealed for long. Theme for Week 10. Urban exploration meets vault descent. This week blends the sprawling, neon-lit underbelly of Elysium Drift with vault expeditions that push deeper into the breach. Surface-level missions intertwine with subterranean excursions, fostering intrigue and danger. Player agency at maximum. Choices made in Vault 42 directly shape syndicate power dynamics and breach stability. Players will face opportunities to forge alliances, exploit syndicate weaknesses, or fracture resistance factions. Rising stakes. Breach anomalies leak into the urban sprawl, distorting reality in localized bursts. Tactical control of these zones becomes paramount as breach shadows manifest not only within vaults, but among the living. Player goals this week. Unlock Vault 43's entry points. Locate hidden pathways through Elysium Drift, utilizing resistance informants and syndicate defectors. Manage syndicate encroachment. Disrupt syndicate forces rallying at Riftflare Crossroads, a major control node influencing vault stability. Secure anomalous relics. Breach zones are rumored to hide Anunnaki technology that may alter vault pathways. These relics must be retrieved before the Syndicate seizes them. Strengthen resistance factions. The resistance is splintering. Reunify factions by aligning with leaders or exploiting rivalries to your advantage. Foreshadowing key events. Eye roll 18. Vault 43's Pulse. Players will experience low-frequency breaches during surface missions, hinting at Vault 43's growing instability. Unstable vault tremors will create dynamic environmental challenges. NPC betrayals and shifting alliances. Not all syndicate defectors can be trusted. Some may harbor ulterior motives, risking infiltration of player strongholds. Ramses II's transformation. The Vault Archivist AI grows increasingly erratic. Subtle changes in his dialogue hint that his core processes may be compromised by breach anomalies, setting the stage for future confrontation. Tone and atmosphere. Dystopian tension. Elysium Drift's underbelly pulses with breach anomalies, its streets glowing faintly from metaspace rifts. The cityscape feels alive, whispering with the same energy that hums in the vault corridors below. Paranoia and mystery. Syndicate leaders vanish, breach shadows flicker through alleyways, and every relic retrieved feels like it holds the weight of forgotten gods. Players are constantly on edge, questioning friend and foe alike. Session logistics. 8 parts minimum. 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. standard structure applies, with additional parts slotted as needed for critical encounters or extensive roleplay. Combat encounters in separate canvases. Expect syndicate ambushes and breach manifestation events that escalate throughout the week. Intermissions. Players will engage with the Phoenix dorms, potentially gaining new upgrades or customizing personal vaults. Final words. Vault 43 is calling. The lines between the city above and the breach below blur. By week's end, the squad's journey will determine who holds the keys to Elysium Drift's most dangerous secrets. Prepare for the descent. Michael Knight, Marcus Antonius. Simulacrum Studios. Game Week 10, Day 1, Children of the Rift, Secrets of the Underveil. Part 1, The Underveil. Stagger on critical hit. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Campaign Arc, Children of the Rift, Elysium Drift. Setting, The Underveil, Elysium Drift's Black Market Hub. Out of game, OG, Simulacrum Studios, 10 a.m. The studio hums with low chatter as players settle in. Bill, Jonah, taps his dice rhythmically. Kristen, Flavia, flips through her breach maps, and Jessica, Nyx, leans back, arms crossed with a smirk. Michael, Marcus, adjusts his notes, eyeing the underveil map that Steve, GM, places at the center of the table. Steve, GM. The neon glow of Elysium Drift fades as you descend into the underveil, the city's labyrinthine black market hub. The air is thick with smoke, spice, and the faint hum of breach energy. Data runners, smugglers, and syndicate informants operate in the shadows, trading secrets beneath flickering lights. You can almost hear the city breathe down here. Jonah, Bill. Grinning. The sweet scent of morally questionable opportunity. Flavia, Kristen. Try not to detonate anything this time. We're already on thin ice with the syndicate. Marcus, Michael. We're here for intel. Let's keep it subtle. No explosions. Nix, Jessica. Softly, subtle is boring. In-game, IG, the underveil. The squad steps onto a graded walkway, overlooking market stalls selling breach-forged tech and contraband relics. Screens project distorted news feeds, looping reports of rift anomalies. Armed syndicate guards loiter near the vault-shaped entrances of faction outposts. Resistance contacts linger in the shadows, eyes like razor points tracking your every move. Neon signs buzz overhead, blinking half-dead symbols advertising black market cybernetics and stolen rift amplifiers. Somewhere deep within the underveil, a fight breaks out, quick, brutal, and over before anyone glances twice. Steve, GM. Your goal is to secure faction side quests and uncover leads. Every step echoes through the chamber. The weight of the underveil presses down like a storm cloud ready to break. Jonah, IG. Smirking, I say we hedge our bets. Play both sides. Marcus, IG. Sighing, dangerous, but it might yield the most information. Flavia, IG. I'll cover the resistance side. Nix, you keep tabs on the syndicate. Nix, IG. Grinning, already on it. Game die skill checks. Double agent approach. Scenario C. Nix, Jessica game die. Roll. 19. Stealth. Shadows cling to Nix as she follows syndicate operatives unnoticed, blending into crowds and slipping between shifting light. Marcus, Michael game die. Roll. 17. Investigation. Marcus deciphers encrypted black market schematics, identifying hidden tech caches behind false walls. Jonah, Bill game die. Roll. 15. Persuasion. Jonah negotiates a smuggling contract with a syndicate broker. The broker's gaze lingers too long on Jonah's breach grenades, but no words are exchanged. Flavia, Kristen game die. Roll. 18. Deception. Flavia, with a false resistance ID badge, convinces a local cell to trust the squad despite Jonah's syndicate dealings. Narrative progression. Double agent consequences. The squad gains access to two conflicting side quests. Syndicate task. Smuggle breach amplifiers through the outer districts, bypassing resistance patrols. Payment is high, but failure carries lethal consequences. Resistance request. Sabotage syndicate relay nodes hidden beneath transit tunnels, cutting off communications to their higher-ups. Resistance offers vault keys in return. As Jonah steps away from the syndicate contact, a guard with a scarred cheek watches him from across the market. Flavia brushes past resistance runners, her hand brushing the hilt of her breech dagger as she disappears into the crowd. Nix lingers near the syndicate's vault entrance, listening for whispers. Steve, GM. The underveil is restless tonight. The flicker of breach light along the conduits feels sharper, like static electricity skimming across your skin. You're being watched. Marcus, IG. Whispering, we won't be able to keep this up forever. Someone will notice. Flavia, IG. Long enough to get what we need. Foreshadowing Vault 43. Among the encrypted schematics, Marcus uncovers fragmented data marked Project Abyss. The files mention subterranean activity beneath Elysium Drift, coded references to vault activity below the surface. The last line flickers ominously on Marcus' display. Vault 43 trembles. The breach calls. Steve, GM. As Marcus closes the file, static crackles across the encrypted pad. Somewhere deeper in the underveil, something shifts. Part 2. Neon Skies. 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Campaign Arc. Children of the Rift. Elysium Drift. Setting. The Outer Districts. Corporate Sector Perimeter. Out of game. OG. Simulacrum Studios. 12 p.m. The studio air feels heavier, anticipation crackling beneath the surface as dice shift across the table. Bill, Jonah, leans forward, spinning a breach grenade between his fingers while Michael, Marcus, sketches rough outlines of security layouts. Kristen, Flavia, polishes her breach daggers idly, and Jessica, Nyx, lazily traces the rim of her coffee cup, eyes darting between Steve, GM, and the map. Steve, GM. All right. You're at the edge of the outer districts, and the skyline practically bleeds corporate security. The perimeter's swarming with drones, motion sensors, and more syndicate-funded mercs than you'd like to count. Bill, Jonah. Twirling grenade. Sounds like a good time. How much trouble can I get into before someone tells me to stop? Kristen, Flavia. Grinning. About half as much as usual if I have to drag you out. Jessica, Nyx. Let him trip the alarm. I'll be halfway to the data vault by the time security realizes what's happening. Michael, Marcus. Smirking, or we just don't trip the alarm at all. Steve, GM. All right, settle down. GridCorp's data vault is behind 60 floors of cyber-enhanced paranoia and breach sensors. You've got about a 10-minute window before shift rotations start to overlap. If this goes sideways, it goes hard. Jonah, Bill. Smirking. So what you're saying is? Steve, GM. Interrupting. No. You can't just throw grenades. In-game, IG, Outer Districts, Corporate Perimeter. The city breathes around you, cold neon reflections rippling across mirrored glass and metal walkways. High above, corporate logos glow ominously like distant suns. A fine mist rolls across the catwalk, swirling around the feet of enforcers standing guard along key entry points. From the shadows, the squad eyes their target, a slender tower with breach-sensitive plating lining its surface. The hum of active security drones crackles faintly as they loop the perimeter. Enforcers stand rigid beneath the glow of red scanning lights. Steve, GM. The entrance is locked down tight. Access points are scarce and every breath feels monitored. You notice the ground quivering faintly beneath your boots, residual breach energy pulsing through the foundations. Marcus, IG. Whispering. GridCorp's got vault tech embedded here. The walls feel like they're listening. Nyx, IG. Flatly. Good thing I'm not planning on talking to the walls. Jonah, IG. Grinning, right? I talk to the explosives. Much better conversationalists. Flavia, IG. Smirking, focus. Let's move before the drones recalibrate. Game die skill checks. Silent entry. Scenario A. Nyx, Jessica game die. Roll. 22. Thieves' tools. Nyx bypasses the outer locks, slipping beneath the cameras with ghost-like precision. Her steps leave no trace. Marcus, Michael game die. Roll. 18. Hacking. Marcus reroutes security feeds to loop, granting the squad a 2-minute window of total invisibility. His fingers flicker across the controls, barely blinking. Jonah, Bill game die. Roll. 16. Stealth. Jonah follows Marcus closely, suppressing the urge to fiddle with breach grenades. A flickering sensor blinks as he passes. He freezes for half a second, but the alert fades. Flavia, Kristen game die. Roll. 20. Acrobatics. Flavia scales the outer wall, cutting auxiliary power lines feeding into the perimeter motion sensors. A flicker of sparks dies beneath her blade. Narrative progression, entering the GridCorp facility. Inside, the facility feels sterile, cold air hissing through vents, low ambient light reflecting across polished black floors. The squad moves like shadows, weaving past hollow terminals and corporate insignias etched into glass walls. Nick signals from ahead, ducking beneath a motion sensor as a mechanical drone glides silently past. Marcus kneels by an access panel, hands dancing across the screen as lines of code shimmer and collapse beneath his touch. Jonah lingers near the elevator shaft, eyeing breach charges tucked at his waist. Steve, GM. You move deeper into the data vault. The monitors flicker with encrypted files, some of them bearing syndicate seals, others flashing red warnings labeled Project Abyss. This facility's more connected to vault operations than they let on. Marcus, IG. Softly, we're close. Give me 30 seconds. Flavia, IG. 30's too long. Make it 20. Foreshadowing Vault 43. Marcus downloads the data shard, his monitor briefly glitching as encrypted text crawls across the display. Vault 43. Quarantine active. Project Abyss detected. Steve, GM. As Marcus pulls the shard free, a low chime echoes through the corridor. The lights flicker once, then stabilize. Somewhere far below, the breach hums softly. Nyx, IG. Whispering, we're not alone down here. Part 3, Ghosts in the Code. 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Campaign Arc, Children of the Rift, Elysium Drift. Setting, RiftNet Grid, Elysium Drift's digital underworld. Out of game, OG, Simulacrum Studios, 2 p.m. Bill, Jonah, stretches his arms over his head, the faint tension of the previous infiltration still hanging in the air. Kristen, Flavia, snacks on a protein bar while reviewing her character sheet, and Jessica, Nyx, taps her foot rhythmically against her chair leg. Michael, Marcus, is engrossed in sketching Rift schematics, eyes flicking between his notes and the map Steve, GM, is unrolling across the table. Steve, GM. All right. Breathe for a second. But not too long. You've made it past the corporate defenses, but now you're descending into something deeper. The RiftNet is not just data, it's alive. And it doesn't forget trespassers. Jessica, Nyx. Grinning, finally, something that talks back. Let's break the rules. Bill, Jonah. As long as it bleeds, I'm good. Michael, Marcus. It doesn't. That's the problem. In-game, IG, RiftNet Grid, Sub-Level 19. The squad stands at the entrance of a sprawling digital corridor. Glass walls reflect distorted reflections of the team, flickering with the faint pulse of metasphere currents. Runes etched in Anunnaki script float suspended within data streams snaking along the walls. The air is thick with the hum of rift energy and the faint scent of ozone. Steve, GM. As you step inside, the very fabric of the RiftNet pulses beneath your feet. The light around you bends, warping shadows unnaturally. Every data packet skimming along the walls feels like an eye following your movements. Nyx, IG. Softly, we're being watched. Marcus, IG. That's not surveillance. That's the system itself. Game die skill checks. Direct rift dive, Scenario D. Nyx, Jessica game die, roll. 23. Hacking. Nyx breaches the outer RiftNet layers, slipping past firewalls like water through cracked stone. Marcus, Michael game die, roll. 19. Constitution. Marcus sustains the rift dive, resisting the chaotic feedback echoing through his neural uplink. Jonah, Bill game die, roll. 17. Perception. Jonah spots ghost data fragments trailing them, flickering in and out like digital echoes. Flavia, Kristen game die, Roll 21. Insight. Flavia deciphers coded Anunnaki glyphs, guiding the squad toward an encrypted core hidden beyond the main grid. Narrative progression. Into the digital abyss. As the squad advances, breach light pulses cascade across the riftnet walls, illuminating ghostly silhouettes. Marcus pauses as encrypted streams flicker warnings across his HUD. Jonah keeps his back to the squad, eyes narrowed on distant flickering shadows. Steve, GM. You approach a vault-like node embedded in the grid's core, a relic from ancient Anunnaki data servers. The moment Marcus reaches toward it, the shadows solidify. Echo constructs emerge, weaving from fractured breach light. They hiss, static spilling from their jagged mouths. Nyx, IG. Drawing a blade, now they bleed. Combat encounter. RiftNet echoes. Enemies. 3 RiftNet echoes, digital constructs capable of phasing in and out of breach space. Each attack leaves residual static, disorienting the target. Environmental hazard. I roll 18. Firewall surge. Every third round, the RiftNet triggers defensive measures. The squad must pass a dexterity save, DC 16, or take 2d10 breach damage from cascading data spikes. Game die initiative rolls. Nyx, Jessica game die 20. Jonah, Bill game die 17. Marcus, Michael game die 15. Flavia, Kristen game die 18. RiftNet echoes, game die 14. Rounds 3 to 4. Nyx strikes the last echo with a phase blade, game die 21, 13 DMG, severing its connection to the grid. Jonah tosses breach fire grenades, dispersing residual static, game die 18, 10 DMG. Marcus finalizes the data retrieval, game die 22, severing the connection before the firewall can surge again. Flavia cuts through digital tendrils with dual daggers, game die 20, 12 DMG, leaving no trace of the echoes behind. Resolution. The echoes dissolve into the metasphere, their forms unraveling as the squad stabilizes the grid. Marcus extracts the encrypted fragment. Lines of Anunnaki script cascade down his display, whispering warnings of deeper anomalies. Steve, GM. The echoes fall silent, but the grid still hums faintly. Somewhere beyond the node, deeper shadows stir. Foreshadowing Vault 43. As Marcus extracts the encrypted fragment, the RiftNet flickers violently. A distorted message flashes. Vault 43. Awaiting release. Project Abyss protocol engaged. Steve, GM. The breach has been quieted for now. But Vault 43 isn't far behind. Part 4, Faction Reckoning. 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Jonah as a breach-link target. Campaign arc. Children of the Rift. Elysium Drift. Setting. Elysium Drift. The Forgotten Plaza. Out of game. OG. Simulacrum Studios. 4 p.m. The dice have barely stopped rolling from the last encounter, but the energy at the table hasn't settled. Bill, Jonah, rubs the back of his neck, glancing over his breach grenade list. Kristen, Flavia, sharpens her pencil, already anticipating the next stealth maneuver. Michael, Marcus, carefully adjusts his notes, eyebrows furrowed. Jessica, Nyx, leans back, drumming her fingers against the table as Steve, GM, scribbles something behind his screen. Steve, GM. All right. The RiftNet is behind you for now. But as you surface from the grid, the real world feels different. Factions are stirring. The plaza is buzzing with activity, and you can feel the weight of every eye watching. Jonah, Bill. Grinning, I'm sure this has nothing to do with us blowing up half the digital ghosts. Flavia, Kristen. You'd be surprised how often our problems follow us. Marcus, Michael. Vault 43 isn't going to wait quietly. I doubt the syndicate will either. Jessica, Nix. Good. I was getting bored. In-game, IG. The Forgotten Plaza, Elysium Drift. The Forgotten Plaza hums with a different energy as the squad steps back onto solid ground. Neon advertisements flicker along the edges, but something feels off. Syndicate enforcers and resistance operatives stand on opposite ends of the square, silent, tense, waiting. The wind shifts slightly. Whispers trickle through the crowd like static. Syndicate leaders exchange murmurs beneath their breath, while resistance cells check their weapons. At the heart of it all is the squad. Steve, GM. The plaza feels like a coiled spring. One wrong move, and it'll snap. The syndicate knows you tampered with the grid. The resistance suspects you played both sides. What's your play? Nix, IG. Tightening grip on daggers. Let's see who flinches first. Marcus, IG. We can't let this escalate. If Vault 43 unseals, we'll need allies, not enemies. Game die skill checks. Faction tensions. Scenario B. Nix, Jessica game die. Roll. 19. Intimidation. Nix locks eyes with the nearest syndicate lieutenant, daring him to start something. He doesn't. Marcus, Michael game die. Roll. 21. Persuasion. Marcus approaches the resistance cell, smoothing over frayed trust with carefully chosen words. Jonah, Bill game die. Roll. 16. Deception. Jonah convinces the syndicate that the anomalies in the Rift net were unrelated to the squad's activities. Flavia, Kristen game die. Roll. 22. Stealth. Flavia drifts between the two factions, subtly disarming potential threats without anyone noticing. Narrative progression. A fragile truce. The tension lingers, but no one moves. Nix's stare alone seems to hold the syndicate back, while Marcus's words soften the suspicion from the resistance. Jonah's fast-talking spins just enough plausible deniability to muddy the waters. Flavia glides like a shadow, slipping weapons out of reach and keeping the plaza's fuse unlit. Steve, GM. For now, the factions hold back. But it's not peace, it's a pause. Marcus, IG. That'll buy us time. We need to move. Vault 43's data is out there, and it won't stay hidden for long. Jonah, IG. Grinning, I call that a win. No bullets, no breach fire. Nix, IG. Flatly, yet. Foreshadowing Vault 43. As the squad leaves the plaza, a faint notification flickers across Marcus's holo display. It's a cryptic message from an unknown source. Vault 43. Coordinates encrypted. Payment required. Steve, GM. Looks like someone else is already hunting Vault 43. The question is, will you get there first? Intermission. The melted circuit. Valence. That's the system itself. 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Lee tugs a grenade free. Campaign arc. Children of the Rift. Elysium Drift. Setting. Elysium Drift. The melted circuit, underground bar and tech den. Out of game. OG. Simulacrum Studios. 4 p.m. Kristen, Flavia, stretches and flips her D20 between her fingers. Bill, Jonah, stares at the snack table as if deep in philosophical debate over whether he needs a second energy drink. Jessica, Nix, taps on her phone, probably looking up breach gear for flavor. Michael, Marcus, closes his laptop for a brief break. Steve, GM, scribbles notes, eyes flicking between character sheets. A bag of Chinese takeout sits unopened at the edge of the table. Bill eyes it, but Jessica casually pulls it closer to her character sheet without breaking eye contact. Steve, GM. All right, take 5. But when we come back, you're stepping into the melted circuit, a bar that smells like burnt tech and bad decisions. You've got downtime to interact or stir up more trouble. Bill, Jonah. grinning. Is this where we finally get those deep-fried breech chips? Kristen, Flavia, smirking, assuming Jonah doesn't blow the bar up first. Jessica, Nix, sipping her drink. I'd give him 10 minutes. Michael, Marcus, grabbing chopsticks. I'm calling dibs on the lo mein. Bill, Jonah, reaching for the egg rolls. Wait. If Marcus is getting the lo mein, I'm claiming these. Jessica, Nix, raising an eyebrow. That's bold of you. You really think you can outroll me for those? Bill, Jonah, grinning. Absolutely. Game die roll off. Egg roll duel. That's where we finally get those deep-fried breech chips? Jonah, Bill game die roll 14. Nix, Jessica game die roll 19. Jessica, Nix, sliding the egg rolls onto her plate. Better luck next time. Bill, Jonah, sighing. One day, Nix. One day. In game, IG, the melted circuit. A haze of cigarette smoke and faint breech sparks hangs in the air. Neon signs flicker sporadically over rows of beaten tables, and the soft hum of distorted synth music plays beneath murmured conversations. The melted circuit is no stranger to bad deals, but it's one of the few neutral zones between syndicate and resistance operatives. Your squad enters the bar to refuel, regroup, and unwind. Though unwind in Elysium Drift often comes with a side of paranoia. A bartender with augmented eyes scans the room, recognizing Marcus. Jonah slips onto a stool with ease, and Nix fades into a booth at the back, scanning for familiar faces. Flavia remains by the entrance, ever the sentinel. Steve, GM. The bartender offers a nod, recognizing Marcus from past dealings. The rest of the bar barely glances your way. You have some time, what's the move? Marcus, IG. I'll see if he's got anything on Vault 43. Jonah, IG. I'm getting something fried and dangerous. Breech chips sound perfect. Nix, IG. I'm listening in. I guarantee someone here knows more than they're letting on. Flavia, IG. Eyeing the bartender, and I'll make sure Jonah doesn't set the place on fire. Game die skill checks. Downtime interactions. Nix, Jessica game die, roll 18, perception. Nix overhears syndicate runners whispering about a shipment bound for Vault 43. A location fragment is leaked. Marcus, Michael game die, roll 20, investigation. Marcus gathers intel from the bartender. Cryptic messages hint at breach anomalies near the outer district. Jonah, Bill game die, roll 14, sleight of hand. Jonah, accidentally, lifts breach grenades off a passed-out smuggler. He doesn't notice until Jonah leaves. Flavia, Kristen game die, roll 17, insight. Flavia picks up on subtle tension. The circuit feels uneasy tonight, like someone's about to test the neutral zone. Narrative progression, rest and information. The squad secures valuable intel, but the melted circuit feels heavier than usual. Conversations die faster than they should, and even Jonah's breech chips taste a little off. The neutral ground of the bar holds, but cracks in the foundation are beginning to show. Steve, GM. You get the feeling that the circuit's peace won't last long. Enjoy the quiet while you can. Jonah, IG. Grinning, I'll call this a win. Free grenades and fried? Best intermission yet. Flavia, IG. For now. But next time, order something that won't potentially explode. Foreshadowing Vault 43. As the squad finishes their break, Marcus's datapad flickers with encrypted static. The same message repeats. Vault 43 hums beneath the wires. Jessica, Nix. Tapping the table. By the way, I still have the egg rolls. Bill, Jonah. Groaning, I get you next time. Part 5, Blacklight Horizons. 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Campaign arc. Children of the Rift, Elysium Drift. Setting, Elysium Drift, Outer Industrial Zone, Black Light Shipping Yards. Out of game, OG, Simulacrum Studios, 6 p.m. The table feels more relaxed after the intermission, but there's an unspoken tension brewing. Bill, Jonah, stretches, eyeing his breach grenade collection like they're overdue for use. Kristen, Flavia, absent-mindedly twirls a dagger prop while chatting with Jessica, Nyx, about syndicate plot threads. Michael, Marcus, is already adjusting his gear loadout, knowing the next step will bring heavier resistance. Steve, GM, lets them simmer in the calm, quietly smirking to himself. Steve, GM. All right, fun's over. You step out from the melted circuit, and night drapes across the Elysium skyline like a breach veil ready to tear. Vault 43's coordinates lead you to the Black Light Shipping Yards, prime real estate for syndicate smuggling operations. The kind of place where nobody asks questions, even when things start glowing. Jonah, Bill. Grinning, finally. I was starting to miss the syndicate's warm hospitality. Flavia, Kristen. Deadpan, we're not here to blow anything up. Yet. Nyx, Jessica. Mischievously, unless they ask nicely. In-game, IG, Black Light Shipping Yards. The industrial sprawl of black light hums faintly beneath flickering breach lights and the occasional crackle of security drones overhead. Crates and cargo containers tower like miniature skyscrapers, each marked with syndicate insignias. The distant crash of shifting metal echoes somewhere deeper within the maze of shipping lanes. The shadows stretch long, swallowing the light of the horizon. Thick smog rolls across the water near the dockside, obscuring the view beyond 10 meters. Faint digital glyphs pulse intermittently along the crate walls, a warning to outsiders. The air is heavy with a blend of sea salt and electric static. Steve, GM. The syndicate's presence is strong here. Patrols move in pairs, watching over data cores and breach shipments. You're hunting for a lead on the Vault 43 shipment. But remember, there's no backup coming. This is you versus the syndicate. No one else is stepping in. Jonah, IG. Grinning, oh, I love those odds. Game Die Skill Challenge, Infiltrating the Yards, DC 16. Objective, locate encrypted shipment logs without alerting patrols. Obstacles, syndicate drones, breach locks, and layered surveillance grids. Skill checks. Nyx, Jessica Game Die, Roll, 21. Stealth, Nyx slinks through stacked crates, slipping past drones without a sound. Marcus, Michael Game Die, Roll, 19. Hacking, Marcus overrides security feeds, creating false footage loops to mask the squad's approach. Jonah, Bill Game Die, Roll, 14. Perception, Jonah spots faint glyphs along the crates, warning of unstable breach cargo. Flavia, Kristen Game Die, Roll, 20. Insight, Flavia senses the irregular drone patterns, guiding the team toward weak points in surveillance. Outcome, the squad successfully bypasses syndicate defenses, reaching a cluster of sealed cargo crates near the edge of the dock. A faint hum pulses from inside one of the containers. Steve, GM. You've made it to the target zone. The breach hum grows louder as you approach one specific container. Something or someone inside is waiting. Combat encounter, breach-locked container, triggered event. As Jonah examines the breach-marked crate, a shudder ripples through the dockyard. The container's locks disengage with a metallic hiss, and a rift anomaly bursts forth, dragging with it a syndicate operative warped by breach exposure. His limbs twitch unnaturally, eyes flickering with unstable breach light. His breath comes in ragged, distorted gasps. Enemies. One breach-warped syndicate operative, elite rift powers. 2 syndicate enforcers, standard, armed with breach rifles. Environmental hazard. Breach rift surge. Every 2 rounds, unstable rift energy floods the area. Squad members must pass DC 15 dexterity saves or take 2d8 breach damage. Game die initiative rolls. Nyx, Jessica game die 20. Flavia, Kristen game die 18. Jonah, Bill game die 16. Marcus, Michael game die 14. Syndicate operative, game die 12. Syndicate enforcers, game die 10. Round 1. Nyx engages the operative, twin daggers flashing, game die 23, 12 DMG. Flavia disables one enforcer with a breach dagger to the leg, game die 20, 10 DMG. Jonah tosses breach grenades, scattering the remaining enforcer, game die 19, 11 DMG. Marcus attempts to stabilize the breach locks, game die 18. Round 2. Nyx dodges rift surge, striking again, game die 22, 14 DMG. Marcus hacks drone controls, causing one to malfunction, game die 21. Flavia dispatches the last enforcer, game die 19. Jonah delivers the final blow to the operative, game die 24, 15 DMG. Resolution. The operative crumbles into breach static, leaving behind encrypted data keys. Flavia recovers the logs, revealing partial coordinates for Vault 43's next shipment. As Marcus deciphers the last of the data, a message scrolls across his HUD. Vault 43 hums louder. The breach is waking. You are not alone. Steve, GM. You've drawn Syndicate attention. Reinforcements will sweep this place soon. Get moving before the next wave hits. Jonah, IG. Grinning. I don't know, tonight's starting to feel like a win. Marcus, IG. Flatly. You say that every time before something explodes. Nyx, IG. Sliding breach daggers away, then we better leave before he's right. Part 6. Syndicate's response. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Campaign arc. Children of the Rift. Elysium Drift. Setting. Elysium Drift. Industrial District Perimeter. Syndicate Response Zone. Out of game. OG. Simulacrum Studios. 8 p.m. The atmosphere at the table sharpens. Bill, Jonah, leans forward, tapping his dice rhythmically against the table. Kristen, Flavia, tightens her ponytail, a habit she falls into when combat's about to get serious. Jessica, Nyx, calmly sharpens the edges of her custom breach dice with a knife that's probably real. Michael, Marcus, adjusts his notepad, scribbling diagrams of breach tech with quiet focus. Steve, GM, sets the stage with a heavy breath. Steve, GM. You barely make it out of the shipping yard, but Syndicate forces are mobilizing faster than expected. Rift alarms echo across the industrial zone, red lights bathing the skyline. Reinforcements are inbound, and they know exactly who they're looking for. Nyx, Jessica. Smirking, I'd be disappointed if they didn't. Marcus, Michael. Grimly, we need to clear out now. Jonah, Bill. Rolling breach grenade between his fingers, or we make them regret showing up. Flavia, Kristen. Deadpan, I vote we leave before Jonah gets too excited. In-game, IG, Industrial District Perimeter. Thick steam billows from the industrial vents, masking parts of the district in patches of low-visibility fog. Syndicate spotlights cut through the darkness, scanning for movement. Distant footsteps echo, heavy, coordinated, and closing fast. Rift pulses surge faintly beneath the streets, resonating like distant thunder. Steve, GM. 2 squads of Syndicate enforcers sweep the area. You catch sight of black-clad figures moving in formation, breach rifles glinting under the flickering neon. You have seconds before they tighten the noose. Marcus, IG. What's the fastest route out of here? Nyx, IG. Eyes narrowing. I see two paths, both risky. East leads through the transit tunnels. Less visibility, but could be crawling with drones. West follows the waterline, but syndicate boats are already patrolling. Pick your poison. Jonah, IG. Grinning. Or, hear me out. We flood the grid, fry their sensors, and ghost through while they panic. Flavia, IG. Raising an eyebrow? You're suggesting we trip a breach field on purpose? Sensors, and ghost through while they panic. Jonah, IG. It's not a bad plan. Just volatile. Steve, GM. You're on the clock. Decide fast. Game die team discussion. Path selection. The squad pauses, debating their options at the table. Kristen, Flavia, points out the dangers of the waterline while Jessica, Nyx, favors the tunnels for stealth. Michael, Marcus, suggests hacking syndicate sensors regardless of the path. Bill, Jonah, insists on maximum chaos. The team ultimately votes to proceed through the transit tunnels, relying on Marcus and Nyx to keep them hidden. Nyx, Jessica, OG. Alright, tunnels it is. Let's hope syndicate drones haven't multiplied down there. Jonah, Bill, OG. Raising hands, but if they have, I call dibs on the first explosion. Game die skill checks. Escape. DC 17. Nyx, Jessica game die. Roll. 22. Stealth. Nyx leads the group, avoiding syndicate patrol routes. Marcus, Michael game die. Roll. 18. Tech. Marcus disables breach sensors along the perimeter. Jonah, Bill game die. Roll. 16. Athletics. Jonah maneuvers through heavy containers, masking movement. Flavia, Kristen game die. Roll. 21. Perception. Flavia spots a syndicate sniper and redirects the squad before an ambush. Outcome. The squad slips into the transit tunnels, narrowly evading syndicate patrols. Faint breach light flickers along the tunnel walls, an ominous reminder that danger still lingers. As the squad advances, a rift echo ripples behind them, distorting reality for a brief moment. Encounter setup. Riftstalker ambush. As the squad slips deeper into the transit tunnels beneath Elysium Drift, breach energy flickers unnaturally along the walls. The faint hum of rift activity echoes like distant whispers, but the squad presses forward. Suddenly, Marcus's breach stabilizer glitches, momentarily flaring as two jagged tears in reality open ahead of them. Riftstalkers, predatory creatures born from breach anomalies, emerge, their forms flickering between dimensions. Syndicate enforcers, having tracked the squad through the upper levels, seize the opportunity to strike from behind. Steve, GM. You feel the weight of the breach pressing down, the temperature dropping as the Riftstalkers step forward. Behind you, syndicate enforcers close the gap, their rifles steadying. You're boxed in. Roll for initiative. Game die initiative rolls. Nyx, Jessica game die 20. Flavia, Kristen game die 18. Jonah, Bill game die 17. Marcus, Michael game die 15. Riftstalkers, game die 14. Syndicate enforcers, game die 12. Game die round 1. Steve, GM. The air crackles as breach energy surges along the tunnel walls. Two Riftstalkers materialize, emerging from jagged folds in reality. Behind them, syndicate enforcers raise their rifles. Jonah, Bill. Grinning. Oh good. I was worried this was going to be too easy. Flavia, Kristen. Flatly, if I get clawed again, you're carrying me. Marcus, Michael. Focus up. Jonah. Maybe try not to taunt the breach horrors. Nyx, Jessica. Rolling eyes, no promises. Nyx, Jessica. Twin daggers flicker as Nyx dashes forward, slicing at the closest Riftstalker side. Her blades hum with breach resonance. Game Die 24, 15 DMG. Steve, GM. Nyx's blades catch the Riftstalker across its ribcage, black ichor spilling onto the tunnel floor. It growls, pivoting toward her. Flavia, Kristen. Flavia slides past Nyx, intercepting a syndicate enforcer. She twists his arm, dagger pressed to his throat. Game Die 21, 12 DMG. Flavia, IG. Softly, you're in my way. Jonah, Bill. Laughing, she's scary when she gets like this. Jonah, Bill. Jonah arcs a breach grenade toward the Riftstalkers, sparks illuminating his grin. Game Die 20, 14 DMG. Steve, GM. The grenade detonates midair, showering the tunnel in breach fire. One Riftstalker recoils, its form flickering unnaturally. Marcus, Michael. Marcus kneels, wiring breach stabilizers along the wall, struggling to mitigate the growing distortion field. Game Die 18, stabilizer partially activated. Marcus, IG. If this field collapses, we're going to be dealing with more than just Riftstalkers. Someone buy me time. Riftstalkers. One Riftstalker lunges for Marcus, claws narrowly missing his side as he dives aside. Game Die 14, miss. The second swipes at Flavia, its talons scraping along her armor. Game Die 18, 11 DMG. Flavia, OG. Grimacing, of course I get hit. Syndicate enforcers. Enforcers fire suppressive shots, Jonah narrowly dodging behind a steel crate. Game Die 17, 8 DMG. Jonah, OG. Mock pain, I felt that. Sort of. Game Die round 2. Steve, GM. The tunnel flickers as breach light pulses again. The Riftstalkers shift unnaturally, closing the gap. Nyx, Jessica. Tightening grip. Let's finish this. Nyx, Jessica. Nyx darts under an enforcer's aim, her dagger slicing across the Riftstalker's leg. Game Die 22, 13 DMG. Steve, GM. Nyx's blade catches, and the Riftstalker snarls, nearly collapsing as breach light pulses from the wound. Flavia, Kristen. Flavia pivots, slashing the Riftstalker across its neck in retaliation. Game Die 23, 14 DMG. Flavia, IG. Stay down. Jonah, Bill. Grinning, I love it when she does that. Jonah, Bill. Jonah follows up with a breach launcher blast, the recoil shaking his stance. Game Die 19, 16 DMG. Marcus, Michael. I'm almost there, just hold the line. Marcus, Michael. Stabilizer activates, the distortion field temporarily nullified. Game Die 20, field negated for 1 round. Steve, GM. The rift still breathes, but something deeper is stirring. Resolution. As the final Riftstalker dissolves into breach static, the faint hum of rift energy lingers. Marcus wipes sweat from his brow, eyes locked on the deeper shadows in the tunnel. Marcus, IG. There's more ahead. I can feel it. Steve, GM. The breach stabilizer pulses faintly. The road to Vault 43 lies just beyond the next corridor. But something else is moving in the dark, watching. And it knows you're coming. Part 7, Syndicate's Last Stand. 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Clock. Decide fast. Campaign arc. Children of the Rift. Elysium Drift. Setting. Elysium Drift. Vault 42 perimeter. Out of game. OG. Simulacrum Studios. 10 p.m. Jessica, Nyx, rolls her shoulders, clearly riding the adrenaline from the last encounter. Kristen, Flavia, munches quietly on some chips while Bill, Jonah, inspects his character sheet. Michael, Marcus, adjusts the breach stabilizer notes, eyeing Steve, GM, who scribbles in his notebook. Steve, GM. All right, the tunnel ahead opens up. You can hear Syndicate squads setting up defensive lines around the perimeter of Vault 42. This is the last stretch before breaching the vault's outer shell. How are you approaching? Jonah, Bill. Grinning. Loud and proud. Marcus, Michael. Raising an eyebrow, or we could do this quietly. Syndicate won't be impressed by your explosions, Jonah. Nyx, Jessica. I vote for slipping past them. Flavia? Flavia, Kristen. Considering, I can take out the scouts silently. But we'll have to be quick. They'll reinforce if we stall. Steve, GM. You've got maybe 2 minutes before they lock down all entry points. Let's see how you handle this. In-game, IG, Vault 42 perimeter. Mist rolls across the vault entrance, partially concealing Syndicate soldiers setting up breach stabilizers. Floodlights sweep the area, casting long shadows against the twisted industrial walls. 2 Riftvale turrets hum faintly, stationed at key choke points. Marcus, IG. 2 squads ahead. Jonah, if you so much as breathe breach fire their way, they'll know we're coming. Jonah, IG. Smirking, relax. I'm just prepping in case things go sideways. Nyx, IG. I'll circle to the left. Flavia, cover me. Marcus, keep that stabilizer ready. Steve, GM. Nyx and Flavia, roll stealth checks. Jonah and Marcus, stay on standby. If they detect Nyx, Jonah, you're first to respond. Game die skill checks, stealth, DC 18. Nyx, Jessica game die, roll, 23. Nyx moves undetected, slipping between Syndicate patrol routes. Flavia, Kristen game die, roll, 20. Flavia neutralizes a Syndicate scout silently. Steve, GM. The patrols ahead continue their sweep, unaware that Flavia's blade just ended one of their scouts. You're in position. What's the next move? Nyx, IG. Whispering. Turret blind spots along the west flank. I'll disable the controls. Flavia, IG. I've got the remaining scout in my sights. Marcus, we need Jonah ready to run distraction if this goes wrong. Steve, GM. Jonah, Marcus, your window is closing. Move now or let Nyx and Flavia handle it. Marcus, IG. I'm not leaving them hanging. Let's move. Encounter setup, Vault 42 gate breach. The Syndicate perimeter bristles with turrets and patrolling guards. The vault gate looms ahead, sealed with breach glyphs pulsing faintly in the darkness. As Nyx and Flavia disable the last turret, a breach surge echoes through the perimeter, triggering rift veil constructs hidden beneath the platform. Syndicate reinforcements arrive swiftly, their eyes glowing with breach augmentations. The squad is cornered at the vault's entrance. The final stand begins. Steve, GM. The air thickens, and you hear the hum of rift veil constructs activating beneath your feet. Syndicate guards shout orders, rifles raised. This is your last chance to breach the gate before reinforcements overwhelm you. Roll for initiative. Game die initiative rolls. Nyx, Jessica game die 21. Flavia, Kristen game die 19. Jonah, Bill game die 18. Marcus, Michael game die 15. Rift Veil Constructs, game die 14. Syndicate Squad, game die 13. Game die round 1. Steve, GM. The Rift Veil constructs materialize fully, jagged crystalline limbs crackling with breach energy. Syndicate guards press forward, rifles leveled at you. The gate pulses behind them, just out of reach. Nyx, Jessica. Rolling eyes, guess we're not sneaking in after all. Nyx, Jessica. Vaulting over a barricade, Nyx hurls a breach dagger into the nearest Rift Veil construct. Game die 23, 16 DMG. Steve, GM. The dagger sinks deep into the crystalline frame, shattering part of its core. The construct stumbles but continues to advance. Flavia, Kristen. Flavia spins behind the advancing syndicate squad, dual blades flashing in the breach light. Game die 22, 14 DMG. Jonah, Bill. Grinning. Time to test out the new breach launcher. Jonah, Bill. Jonah fires a breach grenade into the cluster of guards, flames erupting along the vault entrance. Game die 24, 18 DMG. Marcus, Michael. Marcus activates the stabilizer, attempting to suppress the breach anomalies flooding the gate. Game die 19, breach surge suppressed. Steve, GM. The stabilizer hums, briefly cutting through the breach distortion. The vault gate flickers, and the glyph lock begins to destabilize. Rift Veil constructs. One construct swings at Nyx, barely missing as she ducks. Game die 16, miss. Another lunges at Marcus, but Flavia intercepts. Game die 15, blocked. Syndicate squad. The remaining guards open fire, grazing Jonah as he ducks for cover. Game die 17, 9 DMG. Game die round 2. Steve, GM. The glyphs around the gate surge violently, sensing the destabilization. The constructs grow more erratic, driven by the breach pulse. Nyx, Jessica. Leaning closer to the table, let's wrap this up. Nyx, Jessica. She dashes forward, disabling a glyph node with her breach tool. Game die 22, node deactivated. Flavia, Kristen. Flavia pivots, cutting through a syndicate guard's rifle. Game die 21, 11 DMG. Jonah, Bill. Jonah fires a breach flare into the constructs, causing them to flicker uncontrollably. Game die 19, 14 DMG. Marcus, Michael. Marcus stabilizes the second glyph lock, causing the vault gate to slowly grind open. Game die 20, success. Steve, GM. The gate creaks open, but syndicate reinforcements are already on the way. You have moments to escape inside before the vault seals itself again. Resolution. The vault entrance slowly parts, revealing a spiraling descent into the darkened depths of Vault 42. As the team slips inside, the last Rift Veil construct collapses, its frame shattering into breach static. Behind you, syndicate guards regroup, but the gate slams shut, sealing them outside. Steve, GM. You stand at the threshold of Vault 42's core, but the breach energy within hums with ancient power. This is just the beginning. Foreshadowing. As the team approaches Vault 42's final entry point, breach anomalies flicker in the distance. Marcus's stabilizer begins picking up signals far deeper within the vault, something ancient and something awake. Vault 43's shadow lingers just beyond the breach, waiting. Steve, GM. You've cleared the perimeter, but the breach doesn't feel right. This isn't over. Whatever waits inside, it's already watching. Part 8. Descent into Vault 42. 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. Campaign Arc. Children of the Rift. Elysium Drift. Setting. Vault 42. Spiral Descent Chambers. Out of game. OG. Simulacrum Studios. 12 a.m. The studio lights dim slightly as Steve, GM, leans in, emphasizing the shift in tone. Kristen, Flavia, stretches, knocking over Jonah's, Bill, empty soda can. Jessica, Nyx, taps a D20 absent-mindedly while Michael, Marcus, adjusts his notes. The excitement from the previous combat is still palpable at the table. Steve, GM. All right, the syndicate forces are sealed outside. The vault gate groans shut behind you and the air shifts. This is no ordinary vault. Every step forward hums with breach energy. What's your plan? Jonah, Bill. Grinning, I say we keep going down. This place isn't going to loot itself. Marcus, Michael. Cautiously, let's not trigger any ancient traps. Nyx, Jessica. Softly, I'll scout ahead. If anything flickers, I'll know. Flavia, Kristen. I'll watch our backs. Can't have Syndicate sneaking in through hidden paths. In-game, IG, Vault 42 spiral descent chambers. The narrow corridor spirals downward, carved directly into the stone. Breach glyphs pulse faintly along the walls, illuminating the path with flickering violet light. Distant echoes from deeper within the vault seem to shift and respond to your movements. Steve, GM. The descent winds sharply. The further you go, the stronger the breach resonance. Nix, roll perception to scout ahead. Game die skill check, perception, DC 18. Nix, Jessica game die, roll, 20. Nix senses faint heat signatures beyond the next corridor. Nix, IG. Holding up a hand, wait. There's something ahead. Warm bodies, maybe constructs. It's faint, but they're moving. Marcus, IG. Whispering, how many? Steve, GM. 3 distinct signatures. They're patrolling the chamber beyond the bend. Game die team planning. Approach options. Option A. Stealth. Attempt to bypass unseen. Stealth DC 19. Option B. Ambush. Surprise the patrol. Initiative roll. Option C. Distraction. Lure the patrol away. Deception DC 17. Jonah, Bill. Grinning. Let's just hit them. 3 against 4? I like those odds. Flavia, Kristen. Cautiously, or we could avoid unnecessary fights and save our strength for whatever's deeper. Marcus, Michael. Nodding. Nix, what do you think? Nix, Jessica. Let's try to slip past them. If it goes wrong, Jonah can have his fun. Game die skill checks. Stealth, DC 19. Nix, Jessica game die, roll, 21. Nix leads the team silently along the corridor's edge. Marcus, Michael game die, roll, 18. Marcus barely manages to stay quiet. Jonah, Bill game die, roll, 16. Jonah's gear scrapes, but Nix covers him. Flavia, Kristen game die, roll, 22. Flavia passes without a sound. Steve, GM. The patrol shifts just as Jonah's gear brushes against the stone, but Nix expertly redirects the group behind a set of breach conduits. You pass unnoticed. Game die discovery, relic chamber. As the squad continues deeper, they stumble upon a forgotten relic chamber, vault walls etched with intricate Anunnaki symbols. 3 relic pedestals glow faintly, but breach energy pulses violently around them. Steve, GM. 3 relics rest ahead, but the breach anomalies guarding them hum dangerously. Approaching without care will likely trigger them. How do you proceed? Marcus, IG. Grimly. Looks like some of that ancient trap energy Jonah mentioned. Flavia, IG. We need those relics. Let's not back out now. Encounter setup, Relic Chamber Guardians. The chamber hums as the relic pedestals glow brighter, their energy pulsating in sync with the breach anomalies swirling around them. As the squad approaches, breach glyphs flicker along the floor, activating ancient constructs embedded within the walls. 3 breach guardians step forward, their crystalline forms flickering in and out of phase. Steve, GM. As Marcus reaches for the nearest relic, breach glyphs along the floor ignite. From the chamber walls, breach guardians flicker into existence, their eyes burning with ancient energy. Roll for initiative. Game die initiative rolls. Nix, Jessica game die 19. Flavia, Kristen game die 18. Jonah, Bill game die 16. Marcus, Michael game die 14. Breach Guardians, 3 game die 13. Game die round 1. Game die 13. Steve, GM. The Guardians pulse with breach light, stepping forward in unison. Their crystalline limbs hum with lethal energy. Nix, Jessica. Quietly, let's keep this quick. Nyx, Jessica. Nyx darts forward, aiming to disable the nearest guardian with a breach dagger. Game die 23, 15 DMG. Steve, GM. Nyx's dagger strikes true, shattering part of the guardian's outer shell, but the construct stabilizes, breach energy crackling from the wound. Flavia, Kristen. Flavia flanks the same guardian, her twin blades flashing. Game die 21, 12 DMG. Jonah, Bill. Grinning, I guess we're doing this the hard way. Jonah, Bill. Jonah launches a breach grenade toward the two guardians near the back. Game die 20, 17 DMG to both. Marcus, Michael. I'll keep them busy. You focus on the relics. Marcus, Michael. Marcus activates the breach stabilizer, attempting to suppress the glyphs and slow the guardians. Game die 18, glyphs partially suppressed. Breach guardians. The wounded guardian retaliates, striking at Nyx. Game die 17, 10 DMG. Another swings at Jonah, narrowly missing. Game die 14, miss. The third begins to charge a breach surge. Game die round 2. Steve, GM. The guardian in the rear glows brighter as breach energy spirals around its limbs. It's preparing to unleash a surge. Nyx, Jessica. Tightening grip, not happening. Nyx, Jessica. Nyx vaults over the relic pedestal, plunging her dagger into the charging guardian. Game die 24, 16 DMG. Flavia, Kristen. I'll finish it. Flavia, Kristen. Flavia strikes down the same guardian with a sweeping arc. Game die 22, 14 DMG. Jonah, Bill. Catch this. Jonah, Bill. Jonah fires his breach launcher, detonating the floor beneath the remaining two guardians. Game die 21, 18 DMG. Marcus, Michael. Almost there. Marcus, Michael. Marcus fully suppresses the glyphs, causing one guardian to destabilize. Game die 20, success. Breach guardians. The remaining guardian swings at Flavia, grazing her armor. Game die 19, 8 DMG. Game die round 3, final clash. Steve, GM. The last guardian flickers, struggling to maintain form. Nyx, Jessica. Let's end this. Nyx, Jessica. Nyx strikes the final guardian's core. Game die 25, critical, 20 DMG. Flavia, Kristen. Gone. Flavia, Kristen. Flavia severs the guardian's head with a clean slash. Game die 23, 12 DMG. Jonah, Bill. I'll take that relic now. Steve, GM. The relics are yours, but the vault still holds secrets. Deeper below, something stirs. This isn't over. Game die surprise twist. Emergency glyph activation. Steve, GM. As Jonah reaches for the relic, breach guardians collapse. Hidden glyphs along the chamber floor ignite once more. For smaller breach constructs materialize, their crystalline frames humming with unstable energy. The relic pedestals thrum violently, signaling an ongoing anomaly. Faint whispers echo from the glyphs, fractured voices from another time, their meaning lost, but their intent clear. Steve, GM. As Jonah steps closer to the relic, the chamber pulses violently. Smaller constructs emerge from the shadows, circling the room. Breach glyphs ripple beneath your feet like veins of liquid light, coiling tighter the closer you step to the pedestals. Roll for initiative. Game die new initiative rolls. Marcus, Michael game die 18. Breach constructs, 4 game die 17. Nyx, Jessica game die 16. Flavia, Kristen game die 15. Jonah, Bill game die 14. Flickers, struggling to maintain form. Game die round 1. Game die 13. Steve, GM. The constructs shimmer, glitching as if torn between dimensions. The edges of their crystalline frames hum violently, refracting breach light across the chamber. One construct lunges straight for Jonah, its claws trailing sparks. Marcus, Michael. I'm cutting their power. Hold them off. Marcus, Michael. Marcus channels breach stabilizers, dimming the glyphs and weakening the constructs. Game Die 19. Breach constructs defenses lowered. Nyx, Jessica. Sirius, I'll take the left flank. Nyx, Jessica. Nyx sidesteps the first wave of attacks, sliding between two constructs, her blades flashing as they sever crystalline limbs. Game Die 22. 13 DMG each. Flavia, Kristen. Grimly, no one's getting through. Flavia, Kristen. Flavia intercepts the remaining constructs, her movements precise and fluid, keeping them pinned near the glyphs. Game Die 20. 12 DMG. Jonah, Bill. Grinning. Fireworks coming right up. Jonah, Bill. Jonah hurls a breach grenade into the fray, the explosion bathing the chamber in chaotic light. Game Die 21. 15 DMG. Breach constructs. Two constructs retaliate, striking at Jonah and Flavia. Game Die 18. 8 DMG to Jonah. Game Die 16. 7 DMG to Flavia. Game Die Round 2. Steve, GM. The glyphs pulse erratically. One of the constructs kneels by a pedestal, channeling breach energy directly into the relics. If it succeeds, the vault could trigger another wave of defenses. Marcus, Michael. I see it. I'll shut it down. Marcus, Michael. Marcus rewires the breach stabilizer to send a controlled feedback loop toward the glyphs, disrupting the construct's channeling. Game Die 20 disrupts energy flow. Nyx, Jessica. We've got momentum, let's not lose it. Nyx, Jessica. Nyx delivers twin strikes, severing the channeling construct's arms. Game Die 23. 15 DMG. Flavia, Kristen. Jonah, that launcher of yours ready yet? Jonah, Bill. Laughing, always. Jonah, Bill. Jonah fires his breach launcher at point blank, obliterating the nearest construct. Game Die 24. 18 DMG. Steve, GM. As the final construct collapses, the glyphs along the chamber dim and flicker out. The relic pedestals fall silent, but the vault structure hums faintly beneath your feet. The disturbance is gone, but the vault hasn't let you go. Resolution. The relics are secure, and the breach constructs have been neutralized. Marcus recalibrates the stabilizers to prevent further anomalies while Jonah and Flavia gather the remaining relics. The chamber feels emptier, but the faint echoes of the vault's deeper systems continue to vibrate through the stone. A deep rumble echoes from below. Vault 43 still lurks, its presence undeniable. Steve, GM. The vault remains quiet, but this was just a fragment of what lies beneath. The real fight is yet to come. And somewhere in the deep, the breach is waiting. Foreshadowing. As the relics pulse, Marcus's stabilizer flashes an ominous red warning. Something deeper within the vault stirs, signaling that the relic chamber may only be the beginning. Vault 43's shadow continues to loom. Steve, GM. You can take the relics, but not without waking the breach. Part 9. Wrap-up. Aftermath of the Relic Chamber. Campaign Arc. Children of the Rift. Elysium Drift. Setting. Vault 42. Campfire outside the Relic Chamber. Out of game. OG. Simulacrum Studios. 2 a.m. Kristen, Flavia, stretches, cracking her knuckles as Jonah, Bill, slouches dramatically in his chair. Jessica, Nyx, sips from a fading cup of coffee while Michael, Marcus, reviews his breach stabilizer notes. Steve, GM, closes his notebook softly, leaning back to watch the players decompress. The mood shifts from adrenaline-fueled combat to a quiet reflection of what lies ahead. Steve, GM. All right, the constructs are gone, the relics are in your hands, and you've stabilized the chamber. But I promise you, Vault 42 is just getting started. Jonah, Bill. Grinning. Don't think I didn't notice that rumble. You're holding something over us. Flavia, Kristen. Raising an eyebrow? Something bigger than those guardians? That was round 1. Nyx, Jessica. Smirking, we all know the next round's waiting behind one of those relics. Steve, GM. Oh, before we call it a night, I have something to show you all. The players glance up, curious but clearly exhausted. Steve stands, gestures for everyone to follow him through a side door of the studio. Beyond it lies a descending corridor softly illuminated by breach blue lights. At the bottom, sleek, private rooms line the hallway, each one adorned with personal touches, study desks, and bunk beds. Steve, GM. Welcome to the Phoenix dorms. Built them during the last renovation. Late game nights meant we needed a place to crash without making the commute. Each of you has a space, fully equipped. Jonah, Bill. Eyes wide, no way. We're actually bunking at the studio now? This is amazing. Nyx, Jessica. Grinning. I call dibs on the room closest to the kitchen. Flavia, Kristen. Softly. This is incredible, Steve. Really? Marcus, Michael. Nodding. Might as well lean into it if we're gaming until 3 a.m. I'm in. Steve, GM. Think of it as part of the immersion. Game weeks get long, but this will make sure we can keep the momentum without burning out. So, grab a room and get some rest. Vault 43 isn't going anywhere. In-game, IG, Vault 42, makeshift camp. The team rests at the base of the relic chamber, seated around flickering breach lanterns as the vault hums faintly in the background. The path forward leads further into Vault 42's depths, but for now, the squad takes stock of the situation. Marcus, IG. Checking breach stabilizer. Glyph activities quiet for now, but I won't lie. Those relics are practically vibrating with breach energy. If we disturb them too much, we might wake something else. Jonah, IG. Grinning. And yet, we still took them. So, what exactly did we pick up? Steve, GM. 3 relics rest in containment. Each one pulses with distinct breach signatures. One radiates heat, another frost, and the last flickers with something you can't quite place. It bends the light around it. Flavia, IG. Frowning. I don't like the way that third one looks. Nyx, IG. Neither do I. But it's ours now. Game die loot and XP. Loot acquired. Game die 16. Anunnaki fire relic. Emits intense heat. May interact with breach energy offensively. Shard of frozen light. A relic said to freeze metaspace anomalies upon contact. Prism of the Forgotten. Warps light around it. Unknown properties. XP awarded. Combat XP. 450 XP. Relic Guardians and Constructs. Puzzle/skill checks. 300 XP. Disabling breach glyphs and stabilizers. Discovery bonus. 200 XP. Acquisition of all relics. Total XP for day 1. 950 XP. Character updates. Nyx, Jessica improved relic detection ability. Gains +2 to perception in breach-related environments. Marcus, Michael stabilizer mastery. Breach stabilizers are now 25% more effective. Flavia, Kristen duelist precision. Gains +1 to damage when flanking an enemy. Jonah, Bill breach arsenal. Unlocks new breach grenade modification at next rest stop. Steve, GM. As the breach lanterns flicker, the corridor ahead darkens. The vault feels heavier. Whatever waits below won't be as forgiving. Marcus, IG. Sighing. Hope you all enjoy breathing because the next step forward isn't going to be quiet. Jonah, IG. Laughing, well, if we're going out loud, we might as well look good doing it. Steve, GM. Rest while you can. Vault 43's call is getting louder. And next time, it answers.